Da, 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 da. Welcome, welcome. Today we are talking about one of the more important habits to have. It's actually the very first habit. I'm doing a little series on Stephen Covey's Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. This is a fourth degree paradigm and one of the most useful ones to have because, well, it's a fifth degree, sorry, 7 steps. So it's a fifth degree paradigm and it's a really, really good overview on how to be an effective person. And I'll probably have a bigger video kind of talking about them overall, but I just wanted to jump into the habits today because basically to be an effective person means how efficiently or how well do I move from one point to another in navigating my life, right? So when we talk about the goals and the desires we have of our hearts, how do we move from one place in our life to another? And these are 7 habits that if one has, make that process effective, and that we do that in an efficient manner. So here we go. Be proactive. Now, proactivity is very interesting because it's the number one habit and it's the foundational habit. And it's interesting because there's a lot of people who can have a lot of the other habits. So the habits are be proactive, beginning with the end in mind, putting first things first, thinking win win, so thinking in a fundamentally cooperative paradigm, seeking to understand, then to be understood, working to synergize and work symbiotically with your environment. And then last one, for last but not least, sharpen the saw, which is basically continual renewal of self, right? And a lot of people have different capacities, which these are the habits. But the one that I find most people struggle with is this one, because it is the foundational one. It's the one that when you have, I would say this very habit is the biggest difference between what we see, like sort of in people who achieve versus those who don't, right? This is the single largest habit in that. And it's the one habit most people struggle with. So the characteristics usually are people who take initiative. And we'll say people who do this are extroverted, right? We'll be like they're extroverted or they're outgoing. But especially these last two, that's definitely not true. Taking initiative is definitely a big part of it, but being extroverted, being outgoing, that really has nothing to do with being proactive, right? You can be quite introverted and be proactive and say choosing to draw every day, like by just choosing a habit and making a decision for yourself. A lot of this habit is really just based in understanding your agency. And agency is your ability to choose. And so that's a big part of what we're going to talk about today. It's a pretty simple habit. I don't even think there's a lot to really go over. I think it's just start things. And it's the habit that I see that are most lacking, I would say, in the world. Is most people, in order to do something, need a tremendous amount of support, motivation, and external push before they'll do something. Versus when you're proactive, you have an internal motivation. An internal basically just means you work from the inside out, right? But most people are trying to do outside in. They want to change the outside world, and then that will dictate how they feel about themselves inside. And obviously, that doesn't work, right? And so when we see here that the inner world dictates the external world, the outer world, when we are proactive, we take on this cycle. But when we are external to internal, well, we become something that is acted upon. We are acted upon, while here we act. So here is someone who is exercising their agency. Here is an NPC. And let's get real. Most people are NPCs. That's okay, right? What we've talked about on the scale, most people are kind of down here, right? That's just where they're struggling. They're suffering. Or if they're lucky, they might be getting by a little bit. They might be here in the middle of getting by, but they're not really creating anything on a massive level. A lot of the times they're just taking on the roles, the paradigms, and the scripts from the outside source. So to be proactive, what we have to do is we have to decide what is the fundamental roadmap of our lives. And I asked you a question for that. What would you say is the fundamental roadmap for your life? What is the reference point you use in your mind to determine where you're at? Because a lot of the time, this roadmap that we have inside ourselves is that came externally. It's not coming from inside of us. It's coming from either our parents, society. The most common roadmap is, especially like in the United States, it's get married, go to school, like, you grow up, go to college, find a job, work 40 years, get married, have a couple of kids, you retire at 65, enjoy the last 20 years of your life or whatever. And that's the roadmap most people are comparing their lives to. And then when people can adhere to this roadmap, we call them successful. We say they're successful because they are adhering to this popular roadmap that was given by external forces. And then when someone does not adhere to that roadmap, we call them a failure. And that fundamental paradigm sets most people up to fail, which is why they're down here, because they're not adhering to this roadmap, because that roadmap is not really about them. It's not who they are. It's not what they're built for. And so in order to build this sense of internal security, we have to define what is our internal success, what's our internal roadmap. But in order to do that, we have to be proactive. Because the outside world has no interest in us doing that. It has no interest in us finding our own internal roadmap. Now, when we master our internal roadmap and we get to a certain aspect of it, then the world begins to bend to us. But at the beginning, the external world is going to push and fight that internal roadmap, which is why most people aren't proactive, which is probably why you're not proactive, which is probably why I haven't been proactive in my life. And so fighting against that external push to be validated from this universal roadmap that has been adopted by so many people, that's the biggest barrier to being proactive. So it's really important that we look inside and we find our own internal roadmap. And then after doing that, choosing to walk it and do it, So this is kind of a shorter lesson today because I just wanted to hit that one habit. But I would say in terms of homework, what is your internal roadmap? Determine what is the roadmap you're living by. And then ask yourself, was that roadmap coming from something external or was that internally motivated? And then if it's external, decide and work on deciding and figuring out what is that internal roadmap. Because until you know that, it's very difficult to be proactive, which is the foundational habit you need to be an effective person. Because once you do that, then you'll have agency, you'll have choice, and with that, freedom. But in order to do that, you have to start raising up the vibrations, right? You got to start moving through those difficult emotions. And so that's being proactive today. We're going to call it there. But if you need help applying these principles, let me know. I have a link down below. I coach people, help people on applying these principles to their lives in their own personal way. Like and subscribe if you like it, and do the work, guys, and the work will do work. If you do the work will do you. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Anyway, have a good day. Peace.